Hi everyone, today we have with us award-winning leader, disruptor, difference maker, and visionary in changing the financial statistics for women today. She owns a management consultancy and is senior leader for Tony Robbins Institute. She is also a volunteer and a mentor, and she's here to tell us all today about the habits that she says will lead people to financial success. She owns Femvestors Global and wishes to empower women around the world to achieve their financial goals and invest their money wisely. Hi Pauline, how are you doing? It's great to see you again.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me here today.
Can you tell us a little bit more, please, about what you do?
Ultimately, we change lives. We support women in our community, predominantly women. We do have some men too, so we don't discredit. And we support you in becoming financially fabulous, whatever that means to you. Not everyone wants to be a millionaire or a billionaire, so we don't like to tailor the content around, labeling it. So, however you feel about being financially fabulous, whatever springs to mind, that's what you can be if you choose to. And it's all about having focus, creating good habits, and being successful in your definition of success.
Wow, that is really empowering. I do agree that many women don't know what to do with their money, even when they make a lot of it. So could you tell our audience, please, what do you think women should start doing more with their money?
The reality is we need to pull our heads out the sand for some of us and actually at the core look at what's coming in and what's going out today. I call it a spending plan. I hate the word budgets because it sounds too constrictive. So let's reframe it and use spending plan because our brain goes, oh, spending for today or spending for tomorrow, depending if you're a spender or a saver. So the reality is that we need to think about what is it that you actually want our money to do. Most of us have no idea. Most of us are stuck in this race of life where we just live for the Saturday and we don't feel particularly great about the work that we do or the business that we're in. And therefore we feel like, let's spend some money to make ourselves feel good. And then guess what? It's rinse and repeat. So we have to go back to work again or go back to our businesses and earn it. And then we don't really think about what is it that we actually truly want and desire in life. Some of us are just living for today, living for the Saturday because we're Friday are exhausted, Sunday are already back in work mode. Some of us are living for the one holiday of the year. Some of us are thinking about, like I was, oh, wait till I get to 65. When I hit 65, and I'm wishing our lives away. So we really have to think about what is it that we actually want and start doing more of that. Because once we understand what is it that we truly desire in life, then we have an idea around what we need to save and invest for.
That's great, and that's very important to know. And where do you think that women make the biggest mistakes with money?
Biggest mistakes? Are we talking my biggest mistakes? Or are we talking in general? So, in terms of my biggest mistakes, it was either listening to a financial advisor. That was the first point because I had no idea. I went to see one. I was recommended by someone I knew. And I went to see them and I had no idea what they were talking to me about. And therefore, I didn't ask any questions because I didn't understand what they were telling me. So, before you do anything, don't just hand over your money to someone if you don't understand it or if you don't understand what someone's offering you. So that's one of the areas, first of all, I'd say about one of my biggest mistakes. The other biggest mistake to look at is spending. A lot of us are in this habit where we want to spend money because we want to make us feel a certain way. Some of us like to spend money because they want to wear certain clothes or have a certain bag or certain shoes because we're looking for some sort of significance in our life. And that's driven by some of our, at our core, about some of the way that we look at ourselves. If we're someone who wants to feel a certain way, it's around, well, I'm going to buy something that makes me feel good, make me look good. It feels me like I'm respected in society, if you want to put it that way. And that's realistically around, that's your view of your own self-worth, not the reality of what other people think of you. Sometimes we think that others think certain things of us, and that's actually not the case. Some of us, it's around spending time with the wrong people, spending time with people who like to shop every weekend, who like to do fine dining. And if that's who your friends are, then that's where a lot of your money goes because that's the people you spend time with. So who you spend time with is who you become. So we have to look about our habits and who we spend time with. And if they're the wrong people, we need to think about it. We need to spend less time with them. Another area is basically just leaving in the bank and doing absolutely nothing. A lot of us leave our money in our banks. 71% of women today is a statistic. And we just leave money in the bank because we don't have any idea about what to do. So it's like, well, if I don't spend it, I'm just going to leave it there. And therefore, then that's another challenge. that we have when the reality is that banks don't look after us and we pay us low interest rates. They're businesses at the end of the day. And therefore, then unless we request a high interest bank account, they're not going to automatically give us one. And therefore, then most of us just leave money there. We don't think about it. We don't put it into a high interest account. And when it comes to retirement years, our money's just sat there doing nothing. And therefore, we're ending up with a lot less money because everything's more expensive. And finally, a lot of us leave it to our partners. 56% is the statistics today where, my spouse does it all. And the reality is, ladies, a 48% divorce rate, and we're living 8 years longer. At some point, we're going to have to get educated when it comes to our money. So we can't just let it outsource to someone else and think that that's a solution. And the reality is that no one's coming to save us. The government's not going to come save us. Chances are a person in our life isn't going to be around, so they're not going to save us. And many of us may rely on our children, thinking that they're going to come and save us. But, you have to think with your head and your heart and be realistic that the only person who's going to look after you is you. So therefore, we need to look after our own money.
And why do you think that women make these mistakes?
Why? I call it the Disney effect. We've grown up this view where someone's going to come and save us. And this person's going to ride in on their white horse and we're going to live in our castle happily ever after. And therefore, then on that basis, we don't think about money because we think that the other person's going to do it for us. And unfortunately, if we look at even our childhood for a lot of us today, we've grown up with dolls and watching movies and romantic comedies, and we think that this is the view of life, and the reality is it's very different. And therefore, then many of us are not educated because we outsource our education to someone else. We leave it to our spouse, like I just mentioned before. Or we think it's too difficult, or we think that we have this fear of losing it all because we work so hard for it. We're afraid of making mistakes, and we actually don't understand it. But the reality is that no one's taught financial education. Certainly for people in our generation, yes, it may be starting to change a little bit now for some people, but the reality is for most of us, we're not educated. Men and women, we're not educated in the space. So we have to get educated in the space. And we just can't rely on supposed experts who are going to basically potentially take advantage of us and our money because we're not educated. We have to ask the right questions. We have to get educated in this area. The reasons I've just mentioned. And it's not difficult. We just think it is because we don't understand it or we don't know enough about it. But the reality is, ladies, that we're actually more successful investors than men, statistically, because we do research, we do due diligence, we actually understand it before we actually invest it. A lot of men will listen to their broke friends, or they get a hot tip and just put money on black or red, a bit like the casino, and without doing any sort of analysis or details around why they should invest in something. So ladies are actually statistically better investors, ladies. So listen up. We just tell ourselves certain stories. Majority of us, we may think a certain way, but that's not the reality. It's just because we're not educated in that area. And the reality is that we can get educated in that area. There's so much information out there. Challenges, it's just around who's good at educating the space versus someone who's not so great. They're just doing it to make money to sell you courses.
And how can women learn more how to be smarter with their finances?
Being smarter. The reality is, ladies, that 71% of us leave money in the banks today. And the reality is that is, in most cases, a very low interest bank account, because you actually have to request from your bank manager that you actually want it in a high interest account. So depending on where you live, you can get anything between 3 and 7% today in your banks. But you have to ask for that. You have to say, hi, can you put this into a high interest account for me? They don't just automatically sign you up because they're losing money. Why are they going to give you a high interest account? They're a business. They want to make money for their profits for their shareholders, not look after you. Let's be quite honest. And we have to look at where we're spending. We have to look at our spending habits, like I spoke about. Who you're spending time with is who you become. We shouldn't leave it to our partners. Yes, okay, some of us pay the bills in our house. That doesn't mean the long-term investing is with someone else. We need to take control of our own future. I call it financial wellness. A lot of us spend areas and other parts of our lives around getting healthy bodies and healthy minds, and yet our finances, someone else does that. So we need to start looking at our own financial wellness. And we also need to think about, what is it we actually want that money for? The reality is that we all know we need to save and invest, true. But the reality is we don't, because some of the reasons I've mentioned, but also we actually don't know what we're doing it for. Why do you wake up every day? Why do you go to work every day? Why do you go to your business, work in your business every day? The reality is we have to think about what is it we actually want that money for. And when you get a bit of clarity around what is it you want your money for, saving and investing becomes so much easier because we have an idea of what we want our money to do. The other area where ladies need to focus a bit more, especially if we're in careers, is around putting our hands up more, especially around pay rises. There is a big gender pay gap, as we know. We generally earn around about 84 cents on the dollar compared to a guy. And a lot of people ask me, Pauline, why is that statistic the way it is? Generally, what happens is that we get offered a certain amount of money, but then we stay in those companies a long time and we don't value ourselves to sit there and go, hey, I deserve a pay rise and these are the reasons why. And we just accept that we're giving this token CPI increase of 1%, 2%, 3% if we're lucky. And we just accept that. Or we get, not a great bonus and we just accept that. We don't sit there and go, actually, no, I'm worthy of more. And these are the reasons why. So pay me more. A lot of us don't do that. So ladies, if you're someone who's been in their position for a long time, sit down and go, what have I actually delivered for not only for my boss, but also for the company? And therefore then use that as an avenue in to then go, let's discuss about me having more money in terms of a pay rise. And ladies, we need also look at new skills. So a lot of people talk to me about investing. The biggest asset is actually yourself in terms of earning more skills equals earning potentially more elsewhere. So let's learn new skills. And our biggest investment asset is ourselves. We need to remind ourselves of that.
That's great. And what do you think that women should avoid doing with their money?
Avoid doing. Yes. Doing nothing is not an option. We need to look at doing something with our money. As I said, get clarity on your goals, know where you are today, what is it you actually want, and then it's around looking at resources available to support you on your journey. Now, we've created our community at Femvestors Global because we want to support women in terms of having a safe space to speak up, ask those questions you weren't sure about, and amount of women that say to me, Pauline, I've got a stupid question. No question is ever stupid. It's around if you have something, then this is a space that you can basically ask with no judgment. That's why we create a safe, secure environment. We don't record any of our sessions, and therefore then you have a safe space to speak up without feeling the fear that some people face. We need to stop making money a taboo subject. It shouldn't be taboo, but very much is today. And unfortunately, money touches every element of our lives. So we need to look at areas around following someone who's already in that space, who's successful. If it's not me, follow someone else. But there's plenty of free resources online. So look at what other people are doing and then go, okay, that's something I may want to consider. So I've given you some things today, but one area I look at is I follow billionaires and millionaires. I look at where they're spending their money because I'm like, well, that's where they're putting their money. It's where I want to put my money. They've got all the research and the analysts that do all that work. So why am I going to spend my time doing it? So I actually follow very successful people because that's how I've got to my success. And now I'm supporting others on their success.
Okay. These are some great insights, ladies. I hope that you're taking notes. How should women start investing? And let's say they've never done it before, but today they want to begin investing. So what are the steps?
The basic steps. The basic steps are, once you've got some clarity around what is it you want, you need to look at your risk tolerance, look at your goals, look at, your age does come into play. So if you're someone who's near retirement age, you're not going to make, high risk decisions potentially around your future and when it comes to your money. So we need to take into account what's our risk tolerance, what do we have today, and how do we diversify? Because those really are the key. Now, if you have debt, and I'm talking things like credit cards are the focus. They're, very, very high interest products. Some might have high interest loans. So if you've got high loans and high debt, you need to pay off those first. There's no point leaving money in the bank at, maybe if you're lucky, 3-4% interest rate when you've got a 22-23% interest rate on your credit card. The priority is paying off all those bad debts you've got first. So whether it be loans, high interest loans, or high interest, certainly credit cards are all high interest. If you've got afterpay facilities, avoid them. The other thing you should consider as well is our phones are not our friends, because some of us look at our phones on average 344 times a day, and therefore then our brains don't even register with spending money now. So take off the apps, because that's one way to start looking at reducing your credit card debt, because you're spending it on here. they're not your friends. So please take all those afterpay apps or those, credit card type environments off your phone, because then, and use a debit card where possible. Or you're someone who has a credit card, but you can pay it off in full every single month. So your debt is what you need to pay off as a priority before you start doing anything in terms of investing. The other part I'd say before you invest is also thinking about having an emergency fund. We call it the life jacket, because when you have the life jacket, everything becomes a little bit easier. So if you have a bill that's unexpected, whether it be a medical bill, something wrong with the car, the washing machine's broken down, for example, you need to pay for a replacement. The good thing is that you can use your emergency fund to do that. Now, some people say, can I just use my credit card? Well, the emergency fund, if you lost your job or you got sick, therefore, then you don't have to rely on something else, because your emergency fund is sat there in a high interest account that basically is allowing you to take money out whenever you need it. That is really the life jacket. You don't want to be touching that, but you do want to look at about having at least 6 months worth of everyday monthly expenses sat there in a high interest account that you can touch at any point in time. Now, when it comes to investing, we need to have some sort of life jacket. May not be the full 6 months, but we need to have something. So don't put all your money into investing, because if you do, then you start panicking because you're like, oh my God, I don't have any money to pay the credit card off, or the bills come in and I didn't expect it. And therefore you don't have that. And therefore your psychology takes over. And what we teach at Femvestors Global is really around psychology of trading. And that's really where we're a bit of a game changer, because most people just go, well, buy this. But the reality is when it hits red, most men and women are not used to dealing with that. And how they deal with it is literally, oh my God, I'm losing everything, cash out and close their positions in red in the stock market. But the reality is that, think about it like bags, clothes and shoes that's on sale. It's got a red tag on it, means it's discounted. It's the same thing in the stock market if you know why you bought it in the first place. So as long as you know your ultimate reason why you bought something in the first place, don't just listen to a friend that said, hey, I got this tip and I started investing. Do the research first. And I always say that if you have the basic fundamentals in place, then start looking into some things such as index funds. And again, this comes back to your goals. If you're someone who wants to buy a property in the next 5 years, then don't be looking at the stock market, because you need to look at ways of making sure that your deposit's still going to be there in 5 years. You can't guarantee the stock market's going to give you the money back that you put in the first place and has made you some money. It may take you 7, 8, 9, 10 years to get that money back. And therefore, then we don't advise personally. I would certainly not advise someone to put their money into the stock market if they need it in the next 5 years. If you're looking at someone who wants to start investing, then, as I say, index funds are a good way to start. Also look at retirement accounts, because some of your companies you may work for, basically it's free money for some of us. They put a little bit, they match it. So if you're in a situation where you have free money based on where you live because your company tops it up, then that is an avenue you should be looking at as a priority. Okay, so I hope that helps in terms of some steps to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for these great insights, Pauline. And how much money do women need to have to start investing?
A lot of people ask me how much the money they need to get started. The reality is that you can start with as little as $10. Yes, that's right. You can open up a trading account for free. So many companies online, so just make sure you look at a good one. And things to look out for when you look at an investing account is things like, if you're going to put away a little bit of money every single month, then don't look at a trading account that has a percentage of your portfolio, and that's how they get their fees. Some maybe you put money in per trade and you place money per trade. And if you tell me it's free, nothing's ever free. Okay. So they actually capture it in what you buy it for and what you sell it for. That's really how they're making money. It's a bit like when you go shopping, they bought it from a distributor and they sell it at a retail price. That's really the difference. And similarly in the finance industry, it's the same thing. I'm going to buy it at a discount. I'm going to sell at a higher price and higher margin. That's the difference between what they're selling it to you for versus what they're buying it for. So it's never actually free. There's hidden costs, and you just need to be mindful of those costs when you do start to look at investing. But yes, it's called fractional shares. That's why you can invest as little as $10 in some cases, but you need to make sure your trading account allows for that. So for example, and I'm just going to pick a company, so don't quote me on this company. If I just picked Amazon, for example, and you wanted to buy one share of Amazon, say was $200 as an example, you can actually go and buy $10 worth of Amazon. You don't actually have to buy one whole share of Amazon at the $200. So you can actually look at what they call fractional shares. So please double check with your brokerage account around whether that's an offer that they give you or not. And that's something to take into consideration. But yes, but $10 is how you get started for most cases. Okay.
How can you help women when they reach out to you with what they can do with their money and their money management?
In terms of then how we can help, really, we're a community that's supporting women predominantly. Yes, we do have men in our community, but we're putting content every day out on our social media. You can sign up and download our investing guide at no cost. And we'll be also, sending out information to you on a frequent basis. We don't harass you, don't get me wrong, but we want to make sure that you stay in touch. We have a community set up where you can just basically look at the information we're putting into our community in our Facebook group. So please don't feel that you're on your own, because you're never on your own. And if you want to work with us one-on-one, or you want to work with us in a group environment, or you want to work through at your own pace, we actually offer a variety of different programs. All of them are on our website, including all the costings and the time commitments. Because for us, we know the challenges that you have today. And therefore, then if time and cost is already on display, it becomes an easier conversation. So because we donate so much to charity, we donate 80% to charity, 17% goes in tax, and 3% goes back into the community, into our business community. Therefore, then on that basis, we have nothing to hide, which is why we're telling you the prices that we're charging. The only price we don't show is around working with me one-on-one, because it depends on where you're at, where you are today in terms of, have you started investing, what are you already investing in, what considerations, maybe some geography comes into play. So I can't help everyone, and therefore then that's why I don't advertise if you want to work with me one-on-one, because I really need to understand more about you, where you're at, what your goals are, and can I support you, yes or no. But you can certainly be in our community, maybe do some of our other programs, for example, or even just follow us on social media at no cost. Okay, so there's no excuse really around today about not being educated. And if it's me, I'd love it to be us. But if it's not, and you follow somewhere else, that's cool too. But make sure you take the time out to actually get educated in this area. So you're not just giving your money like I did to this random financial advisor who then basically squandered it. And that's what a lot of us do. And please also be mindful of fees, because fees is I call it the cancer of the finance industry. You don't see it, but it's bubbling away behind the scenes. The next thing you know, your retirement, and then cancer spreads. Okay.
And Pauline, I was wondering about your personal story. What caused you to start Femvestors?
I love this question, Amy. I'm turning my mess into my message. That's the reality. If you know my story, it's certainly on my website, and it wasn't easy to come out and say it, but actually I had an emotional spending addiction. I was in the military in 2002, 2003. I served in Iraq, and I had emotional spending addiction where, for me, spending money on my credit card made me feel amazing. A dopamine hit, feel fantastic, because I wasn't getting it elsewhere. I was never the person when I joined. I was not the same person when I left. And PTSD wasn't really a thing. It wasn't really diagnosed. And for me, that was my coping mechanism. And I look back now and I've worked through that. It took a long time. But that was a reality for me. It was around spending money, feel great, spending money, feel great. And then it got out of control to the point where I had 10 credit cards and roughly about 120,000 US dollars in debt on 10 credit cards. And I didn't also have a lot of self-worth. So the guys I was dating weren't the right guys for me either. And I was also then guarantor, one for a business and one for a property, that both went south, and I ended up being exposed in that area as well. So I had a lot of debt to pay off. Now, through habits, because I was actually finger on the button filing for bankruptcy, through habits, I had to then choose my hard. I then had to make a decision. Do I accept the way things are, or do I do something about it? And either way is difficult. So I had to choose my hard. But going back to habits is really what took me from where I am today and where I was before. That's really what it was. It was around getting focused, understanding exactly where I am, taking little baby steps, understanding where, what areas of my life I need to cut back on. And I went quite drastic. I slept on friends' floors, for example. I took on extra jobs. I did everything I could. I got myself skills and changed jobs over 18 months, put my hand up a lot more, and was just like, I can't stay here in this company with a 3% pay rise. I need to pay off debt. So therefore I need to jump ship, find another company, get more money, and upskill. And that's what I did, to the point where I did pay off my debts. Now, the reality is that then I had money. I've lived such a frugal life. And then from there, it was around, well, what do I do with it now? And then what happened was someone recommended me a financial advisor. And I didn't understand anything he told me, but he wore a lovely suit and had a nice car. And I thought, well, he must be doing pretty well for himself. And therefore, then here's my money. And I didn't know the reality of that situation was that I ended up with nothing in that environment. And therefore, then I had to start over. So what enables me to start Sinton-Baranowska Global is around the fact that I turn my mess into my message. I understand majority of people and what they're going through when it comes to their finances. And therefore, then that's why we created this community for a safe space for women to talk, whether it's around what questions to ask, where should I go, just thinking around just getting started, because most of us don't know where to turn without someone having an agenda. We're not here to selling you, as I said, like, here's a finance course. We just want to make money out of you. We generally want to change your life. We want to change your life so you have this beautiful life, not just today, but also in your future and your later years. We're also, talking about making generational change. You have the ability to teach your children, the people you surround yourself with. And that's why I like teaching women, because we do talk. The men in my community, they don't share it with anyone. Some of them are very embarrassed to say, hey, I'm getting, financial education or financial literacy. And I'm like, don't be embarrassed about it. You should be celebrating the fact that you're actually here and changing your life. And I've got some amazing men in my community who've done some amazing things just around their own beliefs and old stories that they've told themselves, and created new stories and totally changed the way their habits are and allowed them to be a lot more successful in their terms. So this is why we started for Investors Global, because we want to change the statistics of women today. 1 in 5 women that work today will retire with no money. And that's an alarming statistic in itself. We want to make generational change, so then no child should have to not understand about financial education, because their parents are also teaching their children. And also because we give such a large portion of our money to charity, therefore we're changing people's lives who don't even know. And then if we're all lifting ourselves up, what a beautiful world this could be. That's why I started for Investors Global.
And where can people reach out to you, Pauline?
Where people can find me, so across our social, so for Investors Global, or one word, we are on Twitter, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and we're recently going to start rolling out TikTok and some other means as well. So we're going to start doing a lot more video content, which is so much needed. So please follow us and say it's not costing you anything, maybe a bit of time, but we're already scrolling on our phones. So let's do less scrolling and let's focus on things that are important, right? We know more about the Kardashians than we do about our own finances, and that's pretty worrying in itself. So let's focus on our own finances. Let's support you in becoming financially fabulous, whether it's my community or someone else's, and let's continue to lift each other up. I'm all about women supporting women. And thank you so much for today, Amy. It's been an amazing session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these amazing tips. I've learned so much myself through listening to you and during our private talks about this topic. And I hope that many women will become more empowered and smarter with their money, thanks to you and Femvestors. If you like this video and you want to find out more about self-development, about becoming more self-aware and empowered, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the like button.